Welcome to O.P.O.P, the podcast, Operation Protect Our Peace.
I'm Stacey.
I'm Sarah.
Tune into O.P.O.P as we expose all the hard stuff to get to the sweet stuff.
You'll get the truth, plot twists, and the pivots you need to protect your peace.
Life hits hard,
but with God, O.P.O.P hits harder.
Hey, Joy Stealers.
We're coming for you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to O.P.O.P, the podcast, Operation Protect Our Peace. I'm Sarah.
I'm Stacey.
And we are here to interview Stacey today about triggers in the trials and how to keep peace in it.
That is right.
So, Stacey, what is one thing you want to share with the listeners before we interview you?
Well, I think reiterating what we keep saying, which is take what you like and leave the rest, because again, if you listen to the previous episode with Sarah, we mentioned a lot that everyone's triggers are linked to a trauma and everyone's are unique. So again, just remember, we are sharing ours and the takeaways to hope that you learn from it. Maybe you're just going to start thinking about it for the first time. So go easy on yourself, but most importantly, take what you like. Mm-hmm. And other than that, don't worry. Don't take anything you don't want. Mm-hmm. So I will just say that and welcome.
All right, here we go. All right, Stace. So share with me one of your most significant triggers and how you discovered it.
Okay. I'm going to give you a few actually because there was plenty, way more than one.
Woohoo, lucky you.
So I'll start with, I mentioned this in my story, but lying became a big trigger. I had 3 sets of people lie to me over the course, if you heard my story in the episodes, about the most important things, the most special things, the most crucial things in life. So I realized that when that would happen later, if someone lied to me again, I would get triggered naturally. But before being lied to, never knew that. So another one is I realized that when someone would not believe me,
it's the worst.
I was triggered because then it was interesting, right? I was triggered by someone lying to me, being dishonest. And then when I was being honest and someone didn't believe me, which AKA also known as falsely accusing, I was really taken aback by that. So I would over-explain and I would get upset in trying to explain myself and realizing if someone's truth is their truth, you're probably not going to switch their thinking. And so I could have saved myself a lot of grief doing that, but that became a trigger because I then participated in unhealthy habits of thinking, well, if I just keep telling them the facts and if I keep helping them understand, then they'll see my perspective. And that wouldn't happen with certain people, so that became a trigger. Another one is, I guess that's similar, misunderstanding during communication, where people just were not able to see my reason for doing something, but I knew it was something I needed to do, so I'm affected by that. So I would kind of react in a way that was a trigger, and I would get emotional, and I couldn't really say what I wanted to say calmly with stability because I felt it was all I could do to say what I needed, but I was trying to be courageous and saying, this is better for me and healthier for me, but I can't really take this that you are telling me that what I'm saying is wrong, even though it's honest for me. People trying to force me to do what they think I should do, because I spent a lot of time getting pushed around, especially when they wouldn't consider my perspective. That became a trigger. Dealing with something I said I would never do was a trigger because I'm such a big person of my word, and if I mess up, taking accountability for it and being honest about that and trying to apologize and make it right and taking acceptance and saying, yeah, that's something I need to work on, something I need to change. But when that wasn't given mutually, I let too many people push me around for too long, thinking that I was just being nice, and really that kind of became a trigger because then it was hard for me to decipher between, I can stand up for myself and be kind and gentle and emotionally stable enough and not react and not let it become a negative thing because of my reaction. Then you got a whole nother problem. So when people don't do what they say That's definitely a biggie.
Yes.
Because that ties right in for me with, I feel like it's a lie almost, or
Right.
I feel like it's just a truth breaker, a trust breaker.
Follow through.
That's a big one. That's a big one. No accountability or responsibility taken for mistakes. And I guess that I tend to value that so much that I hope for that also in return. And so that can be something, especially when people are doing it on purpose. That was a trigger. When I am vulnerable to say how I feel, and then it's used as a weapon.
Yes.
Or thrown in my face, that's a trigger. When someone leaves in anger or quits with no trying, and you're just left there with this mess, and you're upset and hurt and sad, all these emotions at the same time, and they just left. You're like,
Abandonment.
okay. Then blatant disrespect. That is a big one for me. So fear of being taken advantage of, I guess. I'm triggered when someone is trying to take advantage of someone younger or someone, an elderly person, or being rude to someone like that is weaker maybe looking or seemingly weaker to them. So they feel like they can treat them with blatant disrespect, or me. That fires me up. And I go straight to fight. You know, there's fight, flight, fear, or flee. And that is something like I realized I go red. And partly I like that about myself because there is value in standing up for yourself. And partly I'm like, okay, probably need to deal with that. And I said this a little bit, but being left, lack of control, that I can't make someone understand. I can't make someone commit and do what they say.
Right.
And getting blindsided with someone just straight up being a jerk. That is a trigger for me, even though in the moment I realized, again, I don't mean fight like I'm going to beat someone up. I mean,
Cortisol,
I go
fight or
straight.
flight?
Yes. I mean, my personal reaction to that trigger is if someone just says something that's so rude and it catches you off guard, or they blatantly do something that causes a physical reaction, my initial is to act tougher than I really am. But internally, I am affected very big by that. So those are my main triggers. A whole list.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So, I know. I love it. Let's talk about all of our triggers.
Name one. How about 20?
Who wants to listen to this podcast about our deepest, darkest pain? Yay. Question for you. So you said something that I loved because I also relate to it, but I want to ask you a deeper question.
Okay.
You said that one of your triggers is being taken advantage of.
Yep.
Do you also find that you get triggered when you are collateral damage by other people's lack of showing up? So if they have codependent behavior or they haven't worked on stuff, you get hurt along the process. Is that a trigger to you too, of being like, I've done the work, I've worked so hard, and you're hurting me in this process?
I definitely have had to work through that. I have grown in that definitely because I used to think this person is the exact same. Look, here's these things showing up again, and it would scare me.
Sure.
Whereas now I am maturing enough and going, oh, I don't have to be drug into that. And it's okay that they're on a different spot in their journey, but I don't have to participate. I don't have to react to that. And I'm not going to. So, yes, but that has been a big area that used to bother me too. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I actually feel like you already answered this question with how do you typically react when you're triggered? Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit. Just, I will say with the lying specifically, I took it pretty well the first time, kept it pushing. And then the second scenario comes and I'm going, you have got to be kidding me. There is no way that this person just lied about all that. So it's kind of more shock. Still mad, but I didn't really react outwardly. I was just livid inwardly. And the third time was the charm, baby. I was like, that is it. You just did it. You should not push a very, very long roped person to her boiling point, and that did it. But what it did do, like I have never snapped like how that was in my life, and I never will again. I can say that. I would have bet anything that I would never let someone get to me like that.
Sure.
And then I dealt with it. It's a whole easy ball game to say, I would never fill in a blank
Right.
until you live it, until you walk in those shoes. And you can be the kindest, nicest patient. I have a lot of good qualities, but man, I am telling you, I never snapped like that in my life. I didn't think I had it in me. Guess what? I did when I got in that spot. Mm-hmm. It happened one time and I felt like I really lost my marbles. Now, part of that I was not proud of because I thought, oh my goodness, I did not feel like I had control in that moment. I cannot believe I let another person make me react like that. Now I take full responsibility for that because what I learned is no, you cannot blame your losing your marbles on anyone or anything. You have to take responsibility. And I did. And I accept that. But I also have a portion of me, I was so proud of myself for standing up for myself because that was probably also the first time that I had enough.
Right.
And I was like, that is it. Mm-hmm. And I stood up for myself. So there was a very healthy piece of that because that was the end of me taking it, but I could have done it in a better way. So lesson learned. And I would also say that I used to react and all I could do was get it out in tears. Mm-hmm. So when I had something hard to confront, if it was a person or I would do it, but I didn't have the emotional tools yet and have enough practice yet that I could do it without there being a rise because my emotions would go high. And then a lot of times it just came out with still getting upset, which puts people in a vulnerable state. So it's hard to have a calm, genuine conversation because they're kind of stirred just because you're upset. So it was hard to convey the real message I meant. And then I felt it was the cycle, right, of all my triggers. Then I felt misunderstood. Then I felt frustrated. Then I was upset at myself. Then I was just like, bah,
right.
So again, it used to be like that. And so I want to
And what is
make
it?
sure.
What is it like now?
Well, many
like how have you grown? I think that kind of transitions us into the next question of, right, that's how you used to be. So then what do you do now to help manage?
Yeah.
And how are you responding today?
Well, what used to be my defense mechanism when I had no tools and I was at the rawest state, I had to undo those habits because even though I wasn't the one lying to someone else or fill in the blank of all those triggers I listed, some of it you do start doing unhealthy things unless you deal with yours. So I had to undo those habits. I had to learn, the reason I reacted that way is because this happened and that became a trigger. And I need to address the fact that I now have a responsibility to take action for things that are mine. So I started working on them. And I did that by multiple things. I worked with someone, a coach, who is a dear friend, Kelly Preston, True Horizons. You should look her up if you need someone who will not only coach you, but give you the tools you need, as well as practical. And if you've ever been to someone who you feel like you're talking to and nothing ever changes, or you don't feel they leave you with tools and you pay money and that's it, that's the opposite of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to give you all the tools that we've spent a lot of time, money, energy on learning so that maybe a lot of you do not have to go the same route. You still might need to go do your own work. Now, let's be clear. But I did that. I also found a place called the Peace House. Mm-hmm. And that is a place here in Park City, Utah, and they have one in Salt Lake City, Utah, that helps people when they're in a domestic violence situation. They provide safe housing, they provide counseling, they provide free legal advice. And I found them after I was through my situation, had no idea they existed. So I am telling you now, if you're here, that please look that up for anyone who has been through any abusive situation. It's not just domestic, it's any abuse situation. because I went to volunteer, same as you. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm on the other side of this. I didn't know this existed. A client and dear friend of mine is part of the founder of starting the Peace House. And when I heard, I thought, this is my heart. I'm going to pay it forward. I'm going to go volunteer and help. And one of the things I read was the symptoms of trauma and that they offer free counseling. And I'm going to go ahead in my notes here because I want to read about all the symptoms of trauma. I just got to find where it's at because they are amazing. Oh, is it right here on this page? Okay, I'm gonna get to that in a second. But basically, I read all the symptoms of the traumas, and I realized, oh my goodness, I feel 11 of 12 of those. And I thought, because I was past it and I had done counseling, but you know what was different? I had never talked to someone who understood what I had been through. They are trained and knowledgeable in every abusive kind of situation. And thank God for Alejandra, who was an angel. And they offered this for free. And that's why I'm paying this forward to people who need the help and who cannot afford to do long-term help, coaching, therapy, because it is expensive and you have to be able to afford that. So we are offering tools for people who can't do that. And so that was a huge one. But basically, I know some of them off the top of my head are, you mentioned the pain in your body. It can manifest in ways of stress, tension, headaches, gut issues, back issues, hip issues, pain. I mean, listen to that because that stuff can manifest. And so it can be emotional. Obviously, talking about all these triggers, I realized there was still certain ones. And now that I'm in a beautiful, healthy relationship, I decided I'm not taking these forward. I'm going to do the work because I do not want to be the reason that I hold us back. And
so good.
So two people working together, I mean, I still work on them because the truth is you're not going to just magically not have triggers anymore. It's just you build this is one of my ways of working on it. One of the tools I learned was it's called a window of tolerance. Now,
sounds
what
so
I
pretty.
talked about when I reacted to the third situation with the extreme lying, and it set me overboard. At that point, my window of tolerance was itty bitty, and I didn't know it. And when that happened for the umpteenth time, my reaction is I only have this much room before I'm blowing through the roof. And now, with all these things that I've learned, practiced, and worked through, now my window's big. My window is like, no, lying still triggers me. That's just one example. But now I can address this and go to my tools that I use and go, I get to ask myself all those questions that you mentioned and say, how do I feel right now? Am I going to react right now? Do I need to leave this situation right now and take a pause so that I can get my thoughts together before I say anything? Because one of the things I used to do was talk too quick. And I wouldn't maybe yell, but I would talk too quick. And that's a risk of saying stuff you don't want to and that you don't mean. And it just adds to the thing. So, that's some of the ways that I really grew. And
okay, so let me ask you this question. You mentioned Peace House and therapy. Are there any other self-care practices you want to tack on, or some self-compassion? Like, what do you tell yourself when you mess up and maybe you don't respond well to a trigger? What's your self-talk of, hey, I shouldn't have done that? What does it look like?
Absolutely. So, a couple things. So, I practice a lot of self-care now that I didn't recognize. I was already doing a lot of this before, but now I know it's a non-negotiable. So I have a practice that I started called Operation Protect My Joy. And that's where it was joy and peace. That's
Yes.
where O.P.O.P came from.
Yep.
Operation Protect Our Peace. I've been practicing this. When I realized, I kept saying, anything or anyone that is coming for my joy or my peace, I am going to protect that. So my husband and I actually started a group thing where it was easy question. Does this steal from our joy? Does this steal from our peace? Okay, then we're going to do something about it. And we are going to protect it, period.
So good. I love this.
This is where this came from.
Yeah.
So if the physical things I would do then, along with answering those questions, I take Epsom salt baths, and I have music, and I have a book. Most of the time I put my phone aside, and same deal, just distractions aside. Sometimes I have my phone to literally just watch hilarious videos because laughter is part of my protecting my joy. So sometimes I just scroll through funny videos. I listen to Christian music, peaceful music, uplifting, keeping my eyes on things above. We mentioned that in your triggers too. I write, I take a walk, I go rollerblading. I call a friend or family member that is peace and joy to me. I sit on my porch swing. I have a coffee. I enjoy nature. I exercise, do Pilates. And one of the best ones, I dance. Dancing literally protects my peace and joy. And so you've got to figure out what you value. All of mine are just, that's what I do. None of these might matter to our listeners, but this is the practices that protect me. I keep a gratitude journal and intentionally focus on what's good and all the blessings and that I have to be thankful for, because it squishes out the room for all the crap, all the negativity, all the self-talk, all the outside talk. And I learned how to unplug from stress. All of those things I just mentioned are just tools I learned that help me unplug from stress. And that's how I protect my joy and how I protect my peace. And another thing is that I want to go back to with, we could call triggers core fears. It's just another word that we could say. They're triggers that are tied to feelings. So one of the best things that I learned was you got to identify what your core fears are. Triggers are different than that. It's another layer of depth where you have to go there. And so I started to understand what are my core fears so that they cannot drag me in this crazy cycle anymore.
Gosh, that's so good,
I
Stace.
started learning them.
I love that.
And then I spoke about them to a safe person first, my coach, and then to the people I needed to talk to about them. But there's a pattern to that. You don't just say it and then go. You build your spiritual strength, your emotional strength, your literal physical strength in your body. So all of those things. Oh, that's another thing. I drink a lot of water. I try to eat the right foods that feed my body and soul to be well, not go to things that tear my body down. Not for perfection, but for well-being. And so, yeah, those are things that I do.
I love that. That's really helpful to me personally. That's why I'm like, yeah, speak, girl, truth. I'm like writing this down. And I'm going to add one of the most influential suggestions that you gave me was how Operation Protect Our Joy. She and Gabby started that, a year ago? 2 years ago?
Almost a year, because next month is our 1 year anniversary. And we started when we were planning our wedding. Yeah. It was a non-negotiable.
And that has influenced my life, and I use that daily. And same thing with Operation Protect Our Peace. Jonathan and I practice that. Jonathan stayed on the phone, said, I don't remember the context, but he said something so cool. He said, I am realizing that I need to remove this from my life to protect my peace. And so it's so cool hearing this chain reaction of what you guys started. I'm going to skip ahead to the last questions because I think you answered most of it. Yeah. So let's go to, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting to understand their own triggers?
So I'm going to go ahead to, okay. Oftentimes, triggers themselves are the key to our transformation. So even though it's hard to talk about them, if we could move past the fear of dealing with the trauma, which is linked to a trigger, freedom is on the other side of it. exposing the problem is really the prerequisite for true peace. The trigger and the trauma are really not supposed to rob us of our peace or our joy. Everything, here's another big thing. Everything is not a trigger. So us talking about this is not for people to go, oh yeah, that's a trigger and that's a trigger and I didn't know that. And some things are just pet peeves. And I heard that in a sermon this week, which it's so cool that Pastor Mike Todd with Transformation Church, he spoke on it this week. And his wife referenced that. And she said, not everything is a trigger. Some things are just a pet peeve. And you've got to determine which ones are really linked to your root traumas and which ones are just preference. So the example they gave is, if it annoys you that someone smacks their gums or when they're eating, and that's just a preference. And that is not a trigger. So you need to decipher. And just like I thought about this in telling my story, that there's a lot of abuse that we talk about. Not everyone is an abuser. Not every woman or man that has made mistakes
Right.
is rooted in these calculated bad decisions. And again, right, that's why I said it's not man bashing. It's not acting like everybody's bad. It's not all that. However, you got to know what it is and what it isn't, or else you can't discern. Mm-hmm. That's where it can get blurry, and that's dangerous. So, yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. And then to wrap it up, can you answer this final question? What's one thing you wish more people understood about triggers? So your takeaway from all the things you shared, what is the last final note that you want to share with everyone that's listening?
That there is absolutely a way to live above this. And I would encourage or recommend asking yourselves hard questions this week. What are you carrying that you've never addressed? And could it be that that's what's keeping you where you're at? That's what's keeping you as part of the problem instead of part of the solution, because it can be a very sneaky thing to blame somebody else, to say, well, I react like this because they did this to me. Nope. We don't get to do that anymore and not take responsibility for our own, because two unhealthy things don't make a right. So that's one thing. And also that leaning in to the Bible verse, John 16:33, the Bible says, I, meaning God, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble or triggers or trauma. But take heart, I have overcome the world. We don't have to stay triggered. And we can mature as a whole unit and grow capacity to love other people so that we can shine, all of us. And that's another thing, right? If you don't know God, our podcast is, we're hoping that you see that we are very similar. We're all people on a unique journey, made uniquely, and we all have a story. We all have things that are difficult and that have been hurtful, painful, triggers, trauma, all the things. But there is one person who can be there through it all. Mm-hmm. He can help you heal, and he is the ultimate healer, the ultimate helper, and the ultimate support, the ultimate friend. And so the thing is, even though you hear us talk a lot bluntly about who God is and what he is to us, our hope is that everyone will feel welcome here, that we do have things that we are convicted with, or that we just understand, like, we don't want to live like that anymore, because we found this beautiful path that isn't about law and harshness. It's about grace and goodness, and that we have lived it. We have lived to see the goodness of God. And so we hope every one of you listeners would share this with people who are in a mess, are hot messes right now. And lastly, I would just say this. Please leave us a message about how we can pray for you specifically. Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am with you too." We're doing this so that more people can live freed from trauma that caused the triggers. Instead, we're hoping that we can all transform together.
That's so beautiful, Stace. Thanks for sharing. And that's a great way to end. And so we'll wrap up here. Thanks for tuning in, guys, to listening to the interview of Stacey with Triggers and Transformation and From Trial to Healing. And tune in next time on our next episode. So, hey, Joy Stealers.
We're coming for you.